Hi and welcome back. Now in this chapter we are going to see how to deploy Windows virtual machine in Azure. So now in all resources you can go ahead and add a new resource for a virtual machine. You could also go the virtual machine blade itself or the section for virtual machines, and you can go ahead and add a virtual machine from here as well. So let's go ahead and add a new virtual machine. Now we have to go ahead and ensure that for this virtual machine you choose what is the subscription. So remember, all of the billing for the resources that you deploy in Azure will actually be billed against that particular subscription. So in Azure I have a subscription, it's a pay as you subscribe, but I just have to give a name for it and ensure that you have a resource group in place. So I will go ahead and choose one of my existing resource groups. So remember, this is a logical grouping for your resources. Next we can go ahead and give a virtual machine name. Next you can go ahead and choose the region for the virtual machine, and please know that for some users, so let's say you are going ahead and using a Azure free account, you might not able to create a virtual machine in the region of your choice. So there might be some restriction in creating the virtual machine in all regions. Even when you are using a pay as you go subscription initially, there might be some restrictions, so just keep a note of this, since I will be using the subscription for the long time. I don't have that many restrictions when it's come to launching virtual machines in different regions. Now I will not add anything in terms of availability option. Now in the image over here, so you have different images that are available. So in the list I am going go ahead and choose what Windows Server 2009 data center. So this is going to go ahead and use the image to build a Windows Server 2019 data center. This is images coming from the Azure marketplace. Now if you scroll down, you can go ahead and select the size of your virtual machine over here. It's giving me a size wherein I get two virtual CPUs assigned to the virtual machine and 8 gigas of memory. Over here it's giving an estimate cost per month just for the compute of this virtual machine. The computer power of this virtual machine, remember there are other aspects that are added on to virtual machine. So for example, your data disk, your disk which are added to the virtual machine, that is an additional cost apart from this 1.3 and 8.1 dollar per month. So this cost which is given over here is only for the computer power that is going to this virtual machine, and this is an estimate cost assuming that you are going to keep the virtual machine running 8 month 24 by September. Now if you want to, you can actually go ahead and change the size of the virtual machine and click on the select size, and over here you get different option for the size of the virtual machine. So there are different families for the virtual machine. You have over here for each size of the virtual machine, you get a number of CPUs, and you get the amount of RAM, and you get the amount of data disk that you can actually assign to a virtual machine. So there are different features available for each size of the virtual machine. For now I am just going to leave it as it. So now next we have to go ahead and give the username and password. So over here we are going ahead mention what should the administrator account credentially that should be set up for the virtual machine. Now please ensure that you understand or you know what is the username and password you are going to be entering, because you will going to use this credentially to log into the virtual machine. Now please also note that there are some restriction in what should be the pattern for the password which you enter. So for example, if I just enter a very simple password, so over here you can see that it's not meeting the requirement for the password in Azure. So please make sure that when you enter the password, it's actually confirmed to these requirements given over here. So I will go ahead and just re-enter my password, and Now over here in the inboard ports rule, I am going to keep everything as it, but what is going over here is it's going ahead and adding something no as rule to allow traffic on 23389 RDP. Now by default traffic is not allowed to flow into the virtual machine. This is the kind of security boundary that is put into place for the virtual machine that you spin up in Azure. You actually have to go ahead and create something known as network security group in order to ensure that traffic can flow into the virtual machine. Now since we are going ahead and creating a window virtual machine over here, automatically it's going to go ahead and add a rule to allow traffic on port 3389. This is the remote desktop protocol port for the virtual machine, the window virtual machine. This when there allow you to log into the virtual machine once it's up and running. I will go ahead next for the disks. So in the wizard actually we can see that there is a whole lots of category that we have to enter the first before we can actually go ahead and create the virtual machine. And creating a virtual machine has a lot of aspect. So we are going through the basic version. Now we have go through the basic version. So in the disk we have to go ahead and specify what are the disks that we can attach on it. So your virtual machine need to have this for storage of data and the storage of the operating system. Now by default you will have a OS disk that will be assigned to your virtual machine. Now there are different disk types that are available in Azure. So over here automatically it's giving you a premium SSD. Premium SSD high performance based disk. So if you want high performance you can go ahead and choose the disk type as premium SSD. Now by default the disks have encryption already enabled. So that means that when the data is stored on the Azure data center on the underlying physical infrastructure and it will be encrypted at rest. Now this is only the OS. If you want you can go ahead and attach additional data disk. So let's say you have an application on your virtual machine, that application needs to store data. You can go ahead and add additional data disk onto the virtual machine for the storage of this data. Please note that you can also add data disk later on, and you can add data disk even when the virtual machine is in the running state. Now I will go and next for networking. Now in this networking wizard is going to go ahead and create virtual machine for you. Now the virtual machine needs to be a part of virtual network. So if you already have an existing virtual network in the place, you can go in and choose that virtual network. Please note that the virtual network is a separate resource that can get created along with this wizard. This virtual network and your virtual machine will be created in the same region. So I am creating my virtual machine in the central Indian region. So this virtual network is also going to get created in this same region. Now for each virtual network you have something known as a subnet. So in a subnet is again a logical separation of the address space of the virtual network. Then we have a public IP address. So the public IP address allows this virtual machine to be reachable and from the network. So let's say that you want to go in and connect to the virtual machine, and we likely connect to the machine by the public IP address. Now I am scroll down again. We just have the concept of allowing traffic of the port 3389. Now I will leaving the other setting as they are. Let me go ahead and next for the management. And now in the management screen, I first think that you have to boot diagnostic. Now when the machine boots up, if you want to see the information about the machine itself during the boot up process, you can actually go ahead and ensure that boot diagnostic is available for the virtual machine. All the boot diagnostic information is going to be stored in the something known as Azure Store account. Now we can leave all the other settings as they are. If you want to go ahead and enable automatic shutdown of the virtual machine, you can do that. So if you click on over here, you can go ahead and schedule the time even and in the virtual machine. Let's say you want to go over and save. You can enable auto shutdown setting over here. So I leave all the other setting and as they are, so I just disable automatic shutdown. Now I'm going to next of the advanced. So everything is over here, so there is a lot of setting available for the virtual machine. I will go into the next and go into the review create, and then in the review and create screen it actually performs something known as a validation. Make sure all the settings are correct. In review and create screen, you will also see now what is the estimated cost per hour for this entire virtual machine setup. You can go ahead and look at all these settings for the virtual machine, and once everything is okay, you can go out and hit on create. So now you will getting a notification over here that is going to ahead and performing a deployment of the virtual machine. Let's come back once you have the virtual machine in place. Now once the deployment is complete, you will actually get the notification over here. You can actually directly go on to the resource for the virtual machine. So over here you will getting the overview screen of the virtual machine. Now if you are go on to resources over here, you can see that there are quite a few resources that get created along with the virtual machine. So we have the virtual machine resource itself. In addition to that, we also have a virtual network. So this is the network that hosting your virtual machine. We have the storage account. This is used for storing that diagnostic data. You have the public IP address. So the public IP address is actually used, as I mentioned before, to help you connect the virtual machine or to make the virtual machine reachable from the internet. You have something known as a network security group. So this is used to filter the traffic that's going into your virtual machine or flow out of the machine. It's kind of like having your own firewall for the virtual machine. You have the network interface. So just like you have a network interface for the normal computer, you have the network interface for the virtual machine in Azure, and then finally you have the OS level disk. So this is the disk that it attach on your virtual machine. So in this chapter you have seen how to deploy a Windows virtual machine in Azure.